Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind podcast. Today is Thursday, July 25th, 2024. I am Keith Eister, filling in for Stevie once again today. We have a nice early 6-game MLB slate to break down for you. This one's going to get started right around noon Eastern, so make sure you've got those alarms set and you're ready to go get those lineups in nice and early today on Thursday. Here to help me break it all down is Christy Metzger. Christy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Keith. We were just talking backstage a little bit. It's been a minute since we've done a show together, so it'll be great to break down the slate and do the morning grind with you.
Yeah, it seems like a couple years ago we were on a show once a week or a couple times a week even, but it's been a minute, so good to get with you and discuss some baseball here.
Absolutely, it's going to be good.
All right. Anything interesting happening for you here on Wednesday night?
Yeah. It's kind of a high scoring. Yeah, exactly. Kind of a high scoring slate. Like you said, the Padres are going off a little bit too. I do have some late Dodgers exposure with some stacks that could do okay yet. So kind of waiting to see how that goes. Had a lot of exposure to Bibby and Eovaldi tonight on the pitching side too.
Yeah, pitching was a little bit tough. Cole got hit around a little bit. My best call on the podcast last night was Yariel Rodriguez for the Blue Jays. He came through again for me. So I got a couple of teams with him and Padres that are doing okay, kind of running out of steam. Doesn't look like we're going to get to the top tonight, but a couple of decent runs at it.
Awesome.
All right. So like we said, 6 games, nice early one here for us. Say what's up to YouTube here real quick as well. Got a bunch of people jumping in there already. Don Yeezy, who's always in there. Brent is in there. Derek, a full-timer as well. D Johnson, nice to see you guys again. Thanks for hanging out with us live. Always makes the show a little bit more enjoyable. So glad to have you along here with us. But we're going to go ahead and jump right in. Nice little 6-gamer here. Lots of big pitching names on this slate. So even though there's just a few games, it's still an interesting slate. First game here, we've got the San Diego Padres taking on the Washington Nationals. Dylan Cease going for the Padres. Patrick Corbin going for the Nats. Cease is a -180 favorite here. 9 is the run total in the game. Any interest here in Dylan Cease at 9,200?
Yeah, I do. I do have interest in him. He has, he's got a good K rate here. He's got a 32.4% K rate. Jumps up even to 37% versus right-handed batters. So yeah, I do have interest in him. He's at a pretty good price point at 9.2K on DK. So yeah, I like him a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the price point because that's kind of the first thing that jumped out to me on DraftKings, at least when I jumped in and started researching the slate. It feels like all these aces are just a little bit too cheap for this slate. I think it's going to be pretty easy to build some lineups here with some strong pitching. So definitely interest for Cease for me as well. That K rate is pretty hard to ignore. Not the greatest matchup against Washington, who makes quite a bit of contact, but it's Dylan Cease. He does have the top K rate on the slate, even though there's a couple other big arms alongside him here. But yeah, Cease is right up there among the top options. Patrick Corbin on the other side, coming off a really nice game in his last start, a little bit surprising. Not a guy who puts those together very often at this point in his career. Gets a really tough matchup here against San Diego. He's priced down at 6,500. Any interest in taking some shots on Corbin to repeat what he did last time out?
I know. I really don't. I mean, I can see if you needed to. Like you mentioned, the price point for some of the top pitchers is pretty decent. And actually, my strategy this year a lot has been paying down at pitcher, but I like some of those pitching options at the top. And I think, San Diego has actually been playing better the last, few weeks or so. So they're a little bit cheaper. And so I like the bats a little bit. And so no Corbin for me.
Yeah, same here. No interest. Just too tough of a matchup against San Diego. We saw him beat up on another lefty on Wednesday night.
Yes.
I think Parker's probably a better pitcher than Corbin at this point. So don't like this matchup at all for Corbin. I will be passing as well. Plenty of strong pitching for us on this slate. How about those San Diego bats? Any interest in stacking against Corbin here?
Yeah, I do. So I'm really looking kind of at, the top of the order, but I mean, we've even seen like, Kyle Higashioka performing really well here lately too. But yeah, Profar has been great this year. Bogarts is cheap, just way too cheap. Machado, I think Hae-Sung Kim, Cronenworth, Arise. I think any of those guys in the top of the order, especially, are guys that I'm going to have interest in. So I do like the stack here.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I have quite a bit of interest in this Padres stack. Like them on Wednesday night. Had a little bit of exposure, probably not enough for what they ended up doing.
Exactly.
But I'll be going right back to him here today. Love the Profar call. He's just been incredible this season.
Yes.
Is back and still a little bit underpriced for what he is. Those guys down at the bottom, Hae-Sung Kim and Kyle Higashioka that you mentioned as well, both have had a lot of success in their careers against lefties. I think Higgy went yard on Wednesday. I'm not sure what Kim did, but both of them have had plenty of success. So like those call outs as well. Washington bats on the other side, difficult matchup here against Cease. Any interest in trying to find a home run or two here?
I really don't. I think it's kind of just one of those teams that I'm probably going to more look to cross off on the slate, just because I'm probably going to be playing a lot of Cease. And I know Washington, you got guys like CJ Abrams and maybe taking a guy, some of those guys I think are fine. But for me, it's probably more of a stay away spot on this 6-gamer.
Yeah, stay away for me as well. Abrams is a guy I love to play, but priced up at 5,500 in a really tough matchup. It's hard to get to him here. I think if I was picking a one-off here, I'd look to the young guy, James Wood. Has a bunch of power, a really big prospect for the Nats here, 4,200. Maybe just try to find one home run off of Cease, but definitely no stacks for me. Worth noting, Juan Yepez has hit the ball really well since joining the Nats. He's still really cheap.
Run, right? Did he have a home run tonight, I think? Or
did he? I didn't see that one.
Okay.
I know he's been on fire. He's just hitting. Seems like he's getting 2 hits every game. So he's still too cheap for what he's doing. But again, a tough matchup. It's just a salary saver or two where I need it. Maybe that's really my only interest. But all right, second game on the docket here. We've got the Baltimore Orioles against the Miami Marlins. We've got Corbin Burns going for the Orioles. Roddery Munoz going for the Marlins. Orioles massive -280 favorites in this one. 8 is the run total in the game. Any interest here in Corbin Burns at 9,500?
Yeah, I do. I think he's another pitcher that he's the most expensive, but he's just 9.5K. But I do certainly have interest in him, and I think he's in a good spot. So I do have a lot of interest in him, along with Dylan Cease that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, it's really interesting the amount of good arms we have on this slate. Burns might have the best matchup, probably one that has a better matchup, but certainly not afraid of that price in this matchup against Miami. The strikeouts are down from where we typically see Corbin Burns, but because of the matchup, still very much in play. Massive favorite also, so you definitely have the quality start and the win potentially in play here. Should be a nice deep outing for Mr. Burns here. Roddery Munoz on the other side facing this elite Baltimore offense. Any chance you're going there at 6,200?
Not at all. Not at all. That's definitely a cross off. And I mean, there's a reason why Baltimore is, huge favorites. And yeah, I mean, we'll get to them in a bit, but yeah, absolutely no interest. I mean, he doesn't strike out many batters, got a high walk rate. And then, I was kind of looking at his numbers too. I mean, he gives up like 265 ISO to batters from both sides of the plate, 375 ISO to left-handed batters. So, I mean, I think he's going to run into some trouble with this amazing Baltimore offense.
Yeah, definitely a really, really tough spot here for Roddery. No interest for me either, despite the cheap price tag. You touched on some of those numbers there that he has allowed this season, and Baltimore has been one of the top offenses in baseball. So let's go ahead and talk about these Baltimore bats. A little bit disappointing on Wednesday night, but I think we got to go right back to him here on Thursday.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And the thing about the bats in their lineup, I mean, they're all playable. You just if you look at plate IQ too, there's just a lot of green for the last 30 days for the season. And they've led, their team ISO has been at the top all season long. I mean, they've just held steady. I mean, Henderson has always been fantastic. Rushman is the one that's probably been a little bit down compared to the others, but yeah, Santander and even some of the cheaper bats too, like Hauser and Hessen Kierstead. Mullins, you can get some cheap bats in there too that I really like getting in there. Westberg is the bat too that he's definitely more expensive, but I mean, he's definitely earned it. And but I think they're all in play. I like the lineup from top to bottom.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Anybody who's in this lineup, I have some interest in. Love the cheap call outs. Kauser and Kierstead, a couple of really cheap rookies there who have just been outstanding. Just a really fun offense all around. Ryan O'Hearn, another guy that I really like to play. Big time power there. The lineup is just loaded with power. Like you said, they've led the league in ISO pretty much since the jump this season. Don't see them slowing down anytime soon. Munoz just gets absolutely torched with hard contact. Barrel rate he's allowed is up around like 12.5%. So it's going to be a pretty rough day for Mr. Munoz, I think. Baltimore definitely one of the top stacks on the slate. Exactly. On the other side, we've got Miami taking on Corbin Burns, a weaker offense here. Anybody standing out for you against Burns?
No, there really isn't. I'm going to be playing probably Burns will be a key pitcher in my pitching pool too, but no interest in Miami, kind of like with Washington, just going to kind of cross them out, and more interest in other stacks for sure. So cross off team for me.
Yep. A couple of games on this slate are pretty lopsided, pretty big favorites on one side, pretty bad teams on the other. This is definitely one of those games. I don't even think I'm home run hunting here. Maybe Jesus Sanchez is a cheap guy. Jazz is kind of in the Abrams mold where he's just a little bit too expensive for the matchup, so probably won't be chasing that. But if you want to try to find a cheap home run, Jake Berger's a guy with power. Sanchez be the other guy that I'd look to, but definitely no stacks there.
Exactly.
All right, next game we've got the Detroit Tigers taking on the Cleveland Guardians. Kenta Maeda going for the Tigers. Gavin Williams going for the Guardians. Cleveland is minus 178 favorites here. 8 is the run total. Kenta Maeda at 5,500 taking on a Cleveland offense that's been really good this season. Maeda has had his struggles for sure. Price tag is all the way down at 5,500. It's a really tough matchup. He's had a really short leash here. I'm struggling with this. Like the 5,500, he's probably a little bit better pitcher, but he just hasn't had the leash here recently. So any interest in taking some shots on Maeda here?
I know. I think you broke that down really well. I wish I had a little bit more interest, but I just don't think I can do it. Like you said, Cleveland's been great, and they just don't strike out, and they've been performing well. And I just have a lot of interest in Cleveland as the stack. So for me, I just don't think I can do it. And because we're getting a little bit of a discount, it feels like on some of the top pitchers, I like paying up for pitcher tomorrow instead. So I think I'm going to stay away from Maeda, even though he's cheap.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's just not a slate where I think we even need to go down to this range. If he was fully stretched out, maybe it would be a slightly different conversation, but just not enough leash there recently. Exactly. And he's had a really tough season on top of that. So probably a pass today. Gavin Williams on the other side is a little bit interesting. He's formerly a huge prospect, struck out everybody in the minors, but the strikeouts just have not translated to the major leagues. Strikeout rate all the way down just under 17%. He walks a few too many guys. This is a prospect that I love as he was climbing his way up the Guardian system, but it just hasn't quite clicked for him in the big leagues. What are we doing here with Gavin Williams at 7,800?
I know it's a little bit tough. I think I'm probably not going to play as much of him. I mean, he is priced up. I mean, he's a little bit more expensive than I'd like to see him. I mean, at 7.8K. Normally you look at a matchup against Detroit, but Detroit has actually been playing, fairly decent too. And I can see getting to some of the Detroit bats today too. So I can see making a case for him for sure. Like you said, the potential is there. I probably won't get to a ton of them, but I can see you making a case for it.
Yeah, if he's low owned, I don't hate some tournament shots on him. I dug in hoping to find something that could shed some hope on what he's doing here recently. He did add a cutter to his repertoire, which is somewhat interesting. But the swinging strike rate is like still in line with his low strikeout rate, which is unfortunate. I was hoping to open up the deeper stats and see like a 12% swinging strike rate, but I think it's down around 8%. Not great. Probably doesn't indicate any future strikeouts coming anytime soon. So a guy I definitely have my eye on, but I think we just need to wait for the development to occur for just a little bit longer. I don't hate taking some shots. I do like the matchup against Detroit, but just haven't quite seen the strikeout stuff that we need for the DFS upside just yet. So if I do use them, it'll be sparingly. Exactly. You mentioned those Detroit bats. They have been hitting a little bit better here recently. Williams is a guy who struggles with lefties a decent amount. There's some interesting lefties here for the Tigers. Talk about that a little bit and whether you have any interest in a full stack against Williams.
Yeah, I think just because it is such a small slate, I think, it's interesting. I think they'll be extremely low owned. And, I think yeah, I definitely would keep them in my GPP pool for sure. I think for single entry, I wouldn't be playing them, but I think, if you're doing like a 20 entry max or something like that, I think having Detroit in there, yeah, I mean, you've got Riley Green, who is super expensive, but you've got a lot of cheaper bats with Perez and Colt Keith and, Bierling and Mark Canha. So I think you can get some of those bats in there and they make for a decent low owned GPP stack.
Yeah, I don't mind the mini stack at all. You mentioned the three names that I really like. Riley Green, I know he's expensive, but he's been pretty good this season.
Yes.
Perez has been hitting at the top of the order, and Colt Keith has really started to turn it on here recently. The price tag is coming up, but it was so low to begin with. He's still below 4K at just 3,800. He has that second base eligibility, which is usually a weak position as well. So always a guy that I like to save some money with. And he's got an awesome last name too. So
I know exactly right.
Yep. So mild interest in the Tigers. I like them more as a mini stack. I don't think they have the upside to win the slate, but a little bit of interest as a mini stack. A little bit different story for Cleveland on the other side here. What are you liking for the Guardians?
Yeah. So for the Cleveland side, yeah, there's quite a bit that I like. I think for me, looking at, obviously Jose Ramirez, Kwan, Martinez, Josh Naylor, are all guys I like, probably more of the top of the order than anything, but yeah, there's a team that doesn't strike out and they've been doing really well and they just get a really good matchup here. So I like getting to, and I think even some at the bottom of the order, you could certainly fill them in if you need some cheap value, but I especially like the top of the order.
Yeah, Ramirez certainly in play on any slate. Kwan has been incredible this season. Love the power for Naylor as well. Really good spot. We touched on the struggles for Maeda this season. He's been getting hit really hard this season. So definitely don't mind the Guardians. We've got Will in chat rooting for a Judge hit. I haven't been paying attention to that game, but he's got a parlay working. He needs Judge to get a hit for his last leg. So sending some good vibes his way.
Absolutely. That'd be cool.
Yeah. All right, we're moving on here. Next game up, we've got the Chicago White Sox at the Texas Rangers. Another one of these big favorites. Rangers sitting at minus 240 on the money line. 8 is the run total in the game. Jonathan Cannon going for the White Sox. Max Scherzer going for the Rangers. Any interest here in Jonathan Cannon down at 6,000?
Yeah, he's another one that's definitely priced down there, but I have more interest in Texas, and again, I'm probably going to be paying more for pitching because I think there's some value stacks that you can get, some cheaper bats. So not really for me. I mean, he kind of struggles too with both sides of the plate. Doesn't have a very high strikeout rate. And yeah, Texas is starting to, even tonight, I know they're playing pretty well tonight and Seager had a bomb. So yeah, I have interest more on the Texas side.
Yeah, I do as well. I don't think I can click Jonathan Cannon, just not enough upside with that strikeout rate down below 18%. Has had an okay season for what he is. I mean, he was a quick call up. He was drafted just a year or two ago. So the White Sox are certainly hoping he can develop into something. They're desperate for some pitching help for sure. But I don't think this is the spot here or the slate. Like we've touched on it a couple of times. Just Max on the other side at 8,600 is an incredible price for this matchup. So the top end pitching is a little bit underpriced. We've said it already, but I think we're just living in that top range. Talk to me about Max Scherzer in this awesome matchup against the White Sox.
Yeah, exactly. If you look at, kind of his last game logs, I know he really struggled in his last outing, but this is just a great matchup. He's at a great price. Yeah, I mean, he gets the White Sox who have, they have a terrible ISO against right-handed pitching. I mean, it's 0.091 in just the last 30 days. It's 0.110 on the season. So yeah, it just lines up great for him. The strikeout upside is there as well. So I think it's a good spot for him and definitely have interest in him.
Yeah, I have a ton of interest in him. I'll be interested to see where the ownership lies between Cease and Burns and Scherzer, even Bradley, who we'll talk about in the next game. There's really strong pitching. I could see Scherzer slipping through the cracks a little bit here because he hasn't been great. He got beat up by Baltimore his last time out. Pitched okay against Houston, and both of those are really tough matchups. So I'm not really holding that against him. The strikeouts are still down at 20%, right at 20% for the season. He was up around 26% last season. I think he eventually gets back to that number. So we haven't quite seen, even the late career Max Scherzer, he's still been a tick below that through his first couple of starts here. But I think we eventually see the good version, and this is certainly a great spot for him to get back on track. And if people feel more comfortable clicking on Cease and Burns, and Scherzer slides through for that reason, I will certainly get over the field on his exposure.
Absolutely.
Even Mr. Gerg in chat saying Scherzer's officially washed. I wouldn't be so sure.
Yeah, exactly. I think, like, to your point too, he's just had a couple of tough matchups. I mean, Baltimore can't hold that against him. Houston as well. But yeah, I mean, we'll take a look and see how he does in this matchup. But it sure looks good for him. Like you said, if he does slip through the cracks, great GPP play for sure.
Yep, definitely. All right, let's talk about some bats in this game. We'll start on the White Sox side here against Scherzer.
I just don't have any interest. I really don't. I mean, they're just not. I mean, besides Luis Robert, I mean, there's just really not a lot to like in this lineup. So yeah, the numbers just don't look good. Again, I'll have more Max Scherzer in this lineup, and no White Sox for me.
Yeah, the same. I mean, even trying to pick off one-offs is really hard. There's just a lack of talent in this lineup. Robert's really the only good hitter, I would say, in the lineup. If you wanted to chase some power, you're probably looking at like a Gavin Sheets for cheap.
Yep.
Even Eloy hasn't hit for that much power this season, which is disappointing. He's been dealing with plenty of injuries throughout his career. Just hasn't quite come together for him. But yeah, not enough talent here to try to take on a good pitcher like Scherzer, in my opinion. Rangers on the other side, you mentioned nice little night for them on Wednesday. They've been picking it up a little bit here recently. Still a few injuries in this lineup, but there's plenty of talent to work with here. What do you like?
Yeah, I like this lineup a lot, and I like, especially the top part of the lineup. But yeah, I mean, Marcus Semien, Corey Seager is always a great play. I mean, shortstop is typically a loaded position. And, you've got Henderson tomorrow too. But yeah, love Corey Seager. Josh Smith has been playing really well too. I mean, he's on the season. He's got, 184 ISO, 368 WOBA. Wyatt Langford has actually been playing better too since the All-Star break. Adolis Garcia is the one that's interesting. I know he struggled a little bit too, but I still believe in him. He does have 17 home runs on the season. And, he's actually at a good price point now at just 4,500, I believe. So I have a lot of interest in those guys. And even in Nate Lau and Jonah Heim, certainly don't mind getting to those guys either. But yeah, I really like the top part of the order.
Yeah, I'm interested in the Rangers full stack here, pretty much 1 through 9 for me. Cannon with those low strikeouts gives up a little bit too much hard contact. Yes. Seager is amazing on any slate for sure. Love your thoughts on Adolis as well. The power is still there. He has struggled a little bit, but the ISO, the barrel rate, all of that looks good underneath. So I'm not too concerned about him. Love the Josh Smith call. I've been playing a ton of him recently.
I have too.
Ever since he got moved up to like the middle of the order, he's been hitting like cleanup or fifth. They moved Langford to clean up here recently, so he's been down in the fifth hole, I think, but just he's been incredible. You cited some great numbers there on him. Nate Lowe is still cheap, so don't mind some shots there. Simeon's the one guy we're still waiting on to come around a little bit. He's had his struggles this season, but I think he'll eventually come around as well. And he has eligibility at that weak second base position that we talked about. So totally fine throwing him in a stack as well, even though he struggled a little bit.
Absolutely. Nope. I think they're one of the top stacks for sure. And definitely we'll be getting to, like you said, 1 through 9 really is, I mean, they're all in play.
Absolutely. All right. 2 more to go here. We've got the Tampa Bay Rays taking on the Toronto Blue Jays. This one is a straight pick 'em, one of the only close lines on the slate. 7.5 is the run total here. Taj Bradley going for the Rays, Chris Bassett going for the Blue Jays. Taj Bradley has been on quite a run here recently, has put together just a fantastic season. A little bit of a tough matchup here. $9,000 price tag. Good pitching all over the slate. What's your interest level in Taj Bradley?
I do like him, though. I mean, he has performed well. I know it's a tougher matchup, but I think, it's really been recently that the Blue Jays have kind of started to perform well. I mean, they were kind of slumping, before the All-Star break. And so I do have interest. I mean, he's, sporting almost a 30% K rate, and it gets even better, almost 32% versus left-handed batter. So I have a lot of interest, and I think he probably will go lower owned just because there are some better options at the top. So I like him.
Yeah, it's that ownership angle is what I'm just hoping for, rubbing my hands together. Like I think either him or Scherzer is going to be way too low owned on this
I
slate.
think so too. I
I
think
don't
so
know
too.
which one it's going to be, but I think people are going to be comfortable clicking on
Yep.
Cease and Burns, and they're
Yep.
going to be like, Max hasn't been good. Bradley's been really good, but the Blue Jays have too, so they're not
Yep.
necessarily going to be comfortable paying $9K for him. Whichever
Yep.
of those guys is too low owned in our projections, I'm just going to go way over the field on the other one. Even in a tough matchup, Taj Bradley has been absolutely incredible. Strikeout rate is all the way up near 30% on the season. He's really gotten the walks under control, and the leash has looked a lot better. I know Tampa doesn't typically extend guys, but he's gone 7 innings in each of his last 2 starts, and they were starts against the Yankees and the Guardians. So it's not like he's beating up on some of the weaker teams.
Exactly.
2 really good outings there, and he's been doing it really all season long. Just incredible form here for Taj Bradley. Chris Bassett on the other side, any interest in him?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's, one of those pitchers too. I mean, he's 7,600. So, I mean, decent price point. Probably not my favorite. I could see if you get to him, I think you could consider him for DPPs in your pitching pool. I just have a lot more interest in the other pitchers, like Taj Bradley, Scherzer, Burns, Cease, and those guys. But I guess I don't mind it. And if I'm playing 20 entries, I'd keep him in there.
Yeah, I don't mind keeping him in the pool. I'll be interested to see what Tampa Bay rolls out from a lineup perspective, because Bassett has some of the biggest slits in baseball.
He does.
Really struggles with lefties.
Yep.
So if Tampa Bay rolls out a bunch of lefties, I'll have a lot more reservation on clicking the button on Chris Bassett. But I think he could certainly get through 6 or 7 clean innings here. We know he has one of the longest leashes in baseball. We're getting a little bit of a discount here, as he's struggled a couple of times, 3 starts in a row here. But if Tampa Bay rolls out a fairly right-handed heavy lineup, then I have actually a decent amount of interest here in Bassett. Like I said, this is a pick'em game, so either the win could go to either side. Interesting little matchup here for him. I'll be keeping an eye on that lineup. Another guy who I don't think will be all that highly owned.
Right. Exactly.
All right. How about the hitters in this game? Any interest here in Tampa Bay against Bassett?
Not a ton. I mean, I don't hate, again, if you're multi-entering, getting a little bit of Tampa Bay, because they've shown some upside here recently too. Rosarina's been playing really well. Brandon Lau. Certainly don't mind it. I just think there's maybe some other spots that I like a little bit better, especially we've talked about Baltimore and the Padres and Texas and Cleveland and some of those stacks. But I certainly don't mind them if you're entering quite a few times. So.
Yeah, I do like the 4 teams you just mentioned better than them. I will say I don't hate chasing some lefties here. Brandon Lau looks really good.
Brandon Lau's his numbers are good too.
Yeah. Palacios led off for them on Wednesday. So if he does that again, I think he's certainly in play. He hits from the left side, 3,500. Josh Lowe would be another lefty that I don't mind taking some shots on. Like I said, we'll see what the lineup here looks like here. If they can get some platoon lefties in there. Maybe I have a little bit of interest in a full stack, but more than likely probably just a mini stack or taking a lefty or 2 as one-offs. How about Toronto on the other side here against Bradley?
I mean, Toronto's obviously been playing very, very well lately, and I like them. I think I have more interest in Taj Bradley, so I'm just not really getting to a lot of Toronto kind of at first glance here, but I mean, I could see if people do, just because they've got some big bats in there. Springer, Vlad Guerrero's been playing better too, and Justin Turner. They've got some good bats. Varsho. But I have a lot more interest in Bradley.
Yeah, I'm on the Bradley side of this one as well. Vlad has been incredible. I think 5 homers in 6 games or something for him. He's been on a tear here. Good to see, because
good to see.
Yeah, it was rough watching him ground out every at bat. So glad to see that he has fixed that. Springer's been a lot better here recently as well, like that call out. But I just don't have a ton of interest in stacking against a high strikeout pitcher like Bradley. If he was still having walk issues, it would be a different story, but I mentioned he kind of got that under control here. So no Toronto stacks for me. And I think that pretty much does it. Let's go ahead and move on to the final game of the night. San Francisco Giants taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers. Logan Webb goes for the Giants, get a nice little discount on him at 8,100. And Clayton Kershaw expected to make his season debut here for the Dodgers. He has made 2 rehab starts, 67 pitches in his last rehab start. So have to figure there's a little bit of a leash still here on Kershaw. I would put the number probably at 75 to 80 pitches on him. Maybe he gets to 85 if you're lucky, but I think he's still a little bit limited here. Coming off yet another surgery. We don't know which Kershaw we're getting. So definitely some question marks surrounding Clayton Kershaw. Big name, but not really sure what to expect here. Let's start with Brandon Webb. They're tempting us with the price tag. Really tough matchup for him against the Dodgers. What are you thinking about Logan Webb?
Yeah. For me, I'm probably out on him just because I like someone, and I think we're going to get guys like Bradley and Scherzer at low ownership. So, I just probably have a lot more interest in the Dodgers. I mean, they have so much talent. And if you look at their numbers too and plate IQ, they obviously project very, very well. Just that entire lineup, and Shohei Ohtani's obviously been great, and Freeman, Teoscar's been fantastic too. I mean, especially at the top of the order there, looks really attractive to me. So yeah, I'm probably not playing a lot of Logan Webb.
Yeah, it's a tough spot for him. He's had his struggles here recently.
Yeah.
Struggled going into the break against Toronto. His first one out of the break was in Colorado, and it's hard to know what to make of rough starts in Colorado these days because that Rockies lineup is so bad. But maybe we can give him a pass for that one. Typically, a guy that I don't mind playing, like I usually target strikeouts with my DFS pitcher, but Webb is one of those guys who can just work 7 innings in any start. So I don't mind targeting him as a lower strikeout pitcher, even in tough matchups. I'm struggling with it on this slate because of how strong the top end of the pitching range is.
That's it.
I mean, it's really as easy as that. So I don't think I'm going to need him on this particular slate here, but we'll be paying attention. If he has some success, I'll be happy to jump back on in his next start.
Exactly.
All right. Kershaw on the other side here. Any interest in taking a shot in his first start?
I really don't, just because like you mentioned, I mean, he's just coming back from surgery, and I imagine he's going to be on a pretty good pitch count. And I just think, again, there's so many other upside plays that to me, I just don't want to take a shot, especially his first time out here. So not a lot of interest for me.
Yeah, same. There's just too many questions.
Yeah.
The pitch count is a big question. Just what he's going to look like coming back from surgery at his age is also another question. So
Exactly.
I think we sit this one out, see what he looks like, and be happy to jump on if we get vintage Kershaw or something.
Exactly.
But probably wait and see on this one.
Exactly.
All right. And bats in this game, any interest in Giants against Kershaw?
I do. I mean, I can see getting to some of these bats in there, and just kind of taking a chance that, maybe he isn't ready and that he's, going to give up some home runs and things like that too. So certainly don't mind getting to some bats like Jorge Soler and Matt Chapman and some of those guys. So yeah, I don't mind that. Maybe it's more of a mini stack or a secondary stack, but I think it's definitely intriguing.
Yeah, I think those two names that you just mentioned, Soler and Chapman, I definitely have interest in. I'm probably not stacking, but as one-offs or even a mini stack, I'd be okay with it.
Exactly.
Julio Ramos, the other guy I would mention, has been really good against lefties.
Yep.
Tyler Fitzgerald, has he homered yet tonight? He's got 5 in a row going into tonight.
Yeah, no kidding.
Don't know where that has come from, but he's still really cheap if you want to try that route. I'd be fine with that. I mean, I don't know that we can expect him to hit for all this much power, but it's been a fun little streak that he's on for sure. We'll see if he gets it done tonight for the 6th time. I think he would be chasing Bonds then for the Giants all-time record of 7 in a row, which would just be absolutely incredible.
Wouldn't that be cool to see?
Yeah, absolutely. But no stacks for me. A couple of one-offs. I don't know. I guess you can, on a small slate, you can make a case to stack against Kershaw in his first start and just hope that it goes poorly. I'm personally rooting for Kershaw, so I don't think I'll do that. I hope he gets back to his form. And Dodgers on the other side, Webb, we mentioned his struggles in his last 2. So, and you have the elite Dodgers offense here. What are you liking here for the Dodgers?
Yeah. I mean, I always have interest in Shohei Ohtani. I mean, he's definitely expensive, but certainly worth it. Freddie Freeman is in a great spot. Got the home run champ, Teoscar Hernandez. Will Smith is always a great play too. It's always the bottom part of the order that, gets a little bit tougher because you get some guys that you just don't know what you're going to get. So for me, it's really the top part of the order that I have a lot of interest in, even though they're expensive.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to plug in some of those bottom guys, maybe if you're trying to full stack them.
Yep.
Which it helps you fit in the Otanis and the Will Smith and Freeman, Teoscar, but those are the clear obvious targets.
Yep.
Let's see, Gavin Lux is just, I don't know, thought he was going to turn it around a little bit. He's been a little bit back and forth. Looks like he's got a couple of hits in 3 out of 4 multi-hit games. So maybe he's finally turning it around. Another guy who thought was going to be okay after a big time injury, but has struggled mightily this year. I continue to click him because he's so cheap though.
Exactly. I do like him. He's probably my favorite for the cheap Dodgers fill-ins. And like you said, the last 3-4 games, he's actually done really well and has, a couple home runs in that stretch too. So
yep. All right. I think that does it. Fun little 6-gamer here. Lots of pitching, a couple of offenses in really good spots. So even though it's a smaller slate, I think there are plenty of ways to go. Should be a fun one. But let's go ahead and jump over to the morning grind game here real quick. Give me a pitcher. Not a lot of options today. Give me a pitcher under 8K for 6Ks.
Under 6K or for 6Ks, I think I'm going to go, not a lot to choose from. I think I'm going to go Chris Bassett.
Yep. I like that. That's one of the 2 options that I had written down. I'm going to continue to chase Gavin Williams strikeouts until we finally see them. He's the other guy. I like the matchup for him against Detroit. I know he hasn't shown the ability to strike out major league hitters yet, but this was a guy that had a 30% plus K rate in pretty much every stop in the minors. So I expect the K stuff to come eventually. All right. Over 8,000 in salary to score less than 15 DK points.
I think I'm going to go with Kershaw just because of, kind of his first outing, and he's still pretty expensive and he's priced up kind of with the Scherzers and Bradleys and of the world. So I'm going to go Kershaw.
Yep, certainly don't mind that. I definitely think he's going to be a little bit limited here. I'm going to go Logan Webb just because of the tough matchup against the Dodgers. Not really concerned about his struggles here. I still think he's a very good pitcher, but tough spot for him today against the Dodgers. All right, let's go over 4K to hit a home run.
I'm going to go with, we talked about him a little bit earlier. I like the Texas stack a lot. I'm going to go with Adolis Garcia.
Love that call. Mentioned the power has still been there all season long, even if he struggled a little bit. Good matchup for him against a low strikeout pitcher. That's definitely the spot you want to target him. I'm going to go Gunnar Henderson. Just an incredible spot for him against Munoz, who has given up massive power this season. And Gunnar's been one of the best hitters in baseball. So I will just take an easy one there. Give me a hitter under 4K to get 2 hits.
Yep, I am going to go Heston Kierstead for Baltimore. I think good value there, and I think the whole lineup is going to do well tomorrow. So go Kierstead.
I like that call a lot as well. I'm going to go with Nate Lowe of Texas down at 36. Nice.
Yeah.
Maybe he's heating up. Another guy who's kind of struggled in that lineup, but that Texas offense was so good last year, and they've been injured. They've had their struggles. I think they're going to get right by the time the playoffs roll around. Hopefully they don't blow it up or something at the trade deadline. There's been a little bit of whispers for that, but I think they've invested too much money. They just kind of have to ride it out at this point.
I think so too.
All right. Who is a stack you like to score 6 runs today?
Stack I like to score 6 runs. I've kind of said them. I'm going to stick with Texas. Just probably one of my favorite stacks on the slate. So go Texas.
Yep, I'm right there with you. Love this spot for Texas today. Also really like the spot for Baltimore again. Disappointed on Wednesday night. I had a ton of them. I'll probably have a ton of them again here on Thursday.
You have to.
All right. There wasn't really anything as far as player props up before we jumped on the show. I'm refreshing now. We've got a couple. Were you able to find a pick 'em or player prop before you jumped on the show that you liked?
I wasn't either. No, I hadn't seen anything in that. Yeah, I don't have anything on that regard either. That's
there was one I had written down hoping to pop up, and I just refreshed the DK Sportsbook, and it popped up. Taj Bradley is sitting at 5.5 strikeouts, and
really?
the over is at plus money. So plus 125 on Bradley to go over 5.5 strikeouts. I absolutely love that. I'm going to be betting that right now.
Wow, cool. That is.
Yeah, I was hoping that it came in at 5.5. The plus money is a very nice surprise. I think that'll be about minus 120, minus 130 by the time we get the first pitch on the over there. I know Toronto doesn't strike out a ton, but Bradley, I mean, the strikeout rate's up around 30%.
Oh, it is.
I think he can certainly win this matchup. So I like that number a lot.
You too. It's a good call.
Any money line or totals that stood out to you?
Yeah, let's see on the totals here. Yeah, not that really stood out a ton, I guess.
I got one here while you're looking there. I got Tampa Bay on the money line. It's a pick'em game. Minus 108 is the juice on both sides.
Okay.
I like Tampa Bay. Just backing Bradley again. Bassett is a fine pitcher, but I think Bradley's just a little bit stronger. Neither bullpen really stands out as good or bad. They're both kind of middle of the road, but I think it's a good spot for Tampa. I like them on the money line at basically even money.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, as much as we like Bradley, that makes a ton of sense.
All right, good deal. Anything else to add before we go ahead and get on out of here?
No, it's a great slate. Kind of fun to start a little bit early and a lot of different ways to go, I think, with stacks, even though there's, and pitching too, really, because there's so many good players at the top. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a great slate tomorrow. Yeah,
totally agree with you. Nice, fun one. We get started nice and early. I'll be having my coffee as the first pitch is being thrown for sure. But appreciate you joining me. Appreciate the YouTube chat for chiming in all along the show. That will be it for Thursday. I'll be back with, I believe it's Will, the Chief, with me on Friday. And then Stevie will be back next week. I think I'm filling in a couple of days next week for him too, but he will be back eventually. But appreciate everybody joining us and good luck today.